Magic the Gathering just got a ban list that affects several formats, addresses problematic cards and even discusses reasons why these cards were hit and others weren't. While we're waiting for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG to drop a similar ban list that many are hoping will indubitably fix a game that's been going downhill since 2017, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at the Magic the Gathering ban list and explain it as simply as possible. As I go through each individual format, I'll try and quickly explain what it's all about, starting with Standard. Standard is Magic the Gathering's rotating format, which means it cycles out all the sets and cycles in new sets every year. Sets are standard legal for 3 years, after which they rotate out and make room for the newer sets. No changes for standouts were announced, which makes sense considering rotation just happened. The banlist article mentioned that Standard is currently in a healthy place post-rotation, which is mostly true. I can think of 2 cards that are sort of contentious, but now's not the time to complain about them. Pioneer. Pioneer is one of Magic the Gathering's non-rotating formats. It includes every past and current standard set from 2012 onwards. This means that the available card pool for Pioneer keeps expanded with every new standard set, which in turn means you can sometimes run into situations where old, kind of mid cards suddenly see a boost in playability thanks to the release of some new cool toys, kinda like how Smoke Grenade of the Thief suddenly became very popular thanks to the release of Infernobles. This is actually what happened with the 2 cards that just got banned in Pioneer, Amalia Benavidez Aguirre and Sorin Imperious Bloodlord. Let's start with Amalia. Amalia was the focal point of a new deck centered around our very wordy ability. Basically, anytime you gain life, you'd be able to explore, which is to say, to look at the top card of your deck. If it's a land, you then draw it. Otherwise, you can keep it on top of your deck or send it to the graveyard, and you just put a +1/+1 counter on Amalia. So, how did this get out of control? Well, turns out there's an older card called Wildgrowth Walker that gains you 3 life anytime you explore. So anytime you gain life, Amalia explores, then the Walker gains you life, so Amalia explores again, and we just created a loop. It's not an infinite one because when Amalia's power reaches 20 after exploring a couple of times, she'll destroy every other creature on the board, including the Walker. However, there are easy and cheap ways to make your Walker indestructible, which means you'll be able to perform the combo infinitely, basically draw your entire deck, and kill your opponent on the spot. This combo deck ended up being both far more consistent and resilient than initially anticipated, so Amalia had to go, effectively killing the deck. The other banned card in Pioneer is Sorin Imperious Bloodlord. Sorin is a planeswalker, meaning that he enters as a sort of continuous spell with counters that increase or decrease as additional cost to activate his abilities. The relevant ability here is the last one, which allows you to put any vampire card from your hand to the battlefield without paying its mana cost. It costs 3 counters to activate, but given that Sorin starts at 4, you can use it immediately after playing Sorin. And your vampire target of choice is another recent card, Vein Ripper. It's a pretty beefy vampire with 3 really strong effects. The first ability, Flying, allows it to bypass any creature that doesn't have flying or reach and punch your opponent directly. The second ability, Ward, Sacrifice a creature, means that if your opponent targets Vein Reaper with a card, they have to pay the war cost of sacrificing one of their creatures as an additional cost, or their card will get countered, which is to say negated. And last but not least, its last ability allows you to continuously put pressure on your opponent when any creature dies, including ones that they've sacrificed to try and deal with the Vein Reaper. Before Vein Reaper's release, there were plenty of strong vampires you could cheat out easily with Sorin, but none quite as powerful and effective as Vein Reaper. This time, the older card had to go as a cautionary measure to allow for the printing of costly but powerful vampires in the future. The banlist article mentions 2 other potential bans that avoided the cut this time around, Treasure Cruise and Fable of Kiki-Jiki, but we don't have time to cover these cards for now. Last but not least, the Pioneer bans were also applied to the Explorer format, which is basically the Magic Arena equivalent of Pioneer. Modern. Just like Pioneer, Modern is a format composed of former standard legal sets, this time going all the way back to 2003. Unlike Pioneer, however, Modern also benefits from Modern specific sets such as Modern Horizons 1, 2 and 3, meaning that cards from those sets are legal in Modern even though they aren't and were never legal in previous standard sets. The 2 cards that got banned recently come from those aforementioned sets, Grief and Nadu Winged Wisdom. Let's start with Grief. It's a card that debuted in Modern Horizons 2 and has a really powerful hand rip effect. Its evoke ability allows you to cheat it out by banishing a black card from your hand to play it instead of paying its mana cost, but if you do, Grief immediately dies upon hitting the battlefield, though it will still be able to hand rip your opponent. Where things get complicated is with cards such as Malakir Rebirth or Not Dead After All, which allow you for the low cost of 1 mana to instantly reborn a creature of yours as soon as it dies. In other words, you play Grief for basically 3, hand rip your opponent, and before it dies, you play Not Dead After All to revive it after it dies, at which point it will end-rip your opponent again and stay on the field this time. It is a staple of black-centered decks for a reason, and this interaction makes it outclass every other hand-ripping tool like Thoughtseize, one of the greatest cards ever printed. Now for the tougher one. Nadu Winged Wisdom, hailing from the recently released Modern Horizons 3, has an effect that it gives to all your creatures, including itself. Whenever they are targeted by any other card, regardless of whether it's yours or not, you get to look at the top card of your deck. If it's a land, you put it on your battlefield. If it's not, you draw it. This ability triggers only twice per turn, per creature. The lands that you get from Nadu enters untapped, meaning that you can use them to cast more stuff this turn. There are cards that allows you to target Nadu and your other creatures several times per turn at no cost, namely Shuko and Outrider and Core, which means that you can easily trigger the Nadu effect several times per turn. And last but not least, there's Springheart Nantuko, also from Modern Horizons 3. It can be played as a creature or as a sort of equip spell, and if it's played as the latter, it will create a copy of the creature it is attached to anytime a land hits your battlefield. So Nadu gets your lands for free, which allows you to make creatures with Nantuko, which allows you to have enough creatures to keep triggering Nadu with effects like Shukos, and basically Nadu allows you to draw and play your entire deck. The Nadu deck quickly overtook the modern metagame by storm to the general dissatisfaction of the player base. There's a supplementary article explaining the necessity of the Nadu ban, clearly stating that Nadu was a design mistake that was allowed to slip through the cracks due to improper testing. And for all the chaos that it caused, I can genuinely appreciate the lead designer of the set publicly and loudly admitting that they messed up. One last card that almost got the banhammer was the One Ring from the Lord of the Rings set. No, this is not a joke card, this is real. It protects you for a whole turn, and then it allows you to draw an increasing amount of cards every turn, and it's indestructible. To be honest, given how universally played it currently is, it probably should have been banned as well. Legacy. Legacy is the format that includes every single Magic card ever printed, except really hard to obtain cards like Black Lotus that are never ever going to be reprinted. As such, the power level of this format is through the roof, which makes it extra telling that Grief just got banned there as well. Vintage. And last but not least for now, Vintage is like Legacy, but you're allowed to play it really hard to obtain cards like Black Lotus that are never ever going to be reprinted at 1 copy each. Another 2 cards from the Modern Horizons sets just got banned there. Urza's Sagas from Modern Horizons 2 and Vexing Bauble from Modern Horizons 3. Vexing Bauble is basically an anti-free stuff floodgate, which is fine in Modern, but less so in Vintage, where free broken stuff is part of the appeal of the format. Urza's Saga is a weird land that basically gets a new effect on the turns following the turn it got played. When you play it, it's just a land that makes colorless mana, no biggie. Then, it allows you to play more mana to create a token that grows bigger with each artifact that you control. And last but not least, it allows you to basically search and play any artifact that costs 1 or less from your deck. Potential targets include, but are not limited to, Black Lotus, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, all of the Moxes, Soul Ring, even stuff like Portable Hole for removal, or Vexing Bubble. Vintage is a format so clearly defined by those absurdly powerful artifacts that just being able to simply get them whenever you need them and get a beefy token in the process is kind of game breaking, even by the you're allowed to play 1 Black Lotus standards. So, you know, bye. Anyway, that's it from this Magic the Gathering ban list. I really encourage you to read the whole article detailing the reasoning behind each ban, as well as the additional article detailing the story behind Nadu's design. The next Magic the Gathering ban list is slated to drop on December 16th, which, hey, can you imagine if Koali actually gave us release date for ban lists, instead of saying, They're coming someday. Thank you all for watching this video, hope you found it informative even if you do not play Magic. I'll make sure to record my reaction to the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG ban list, which I'm sure will definitely fix every single problem with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! You better sell those ashes now before they definitely get banned for sure very soon. Thank you once again for watching and see you next time.